I happen to be taking it. I happen to be taking it.
Hydroxychloroquine?
I'm taking it, hydroxychloroquine,
Is there any rationale as to why you started taking it?
because I think it's good. I've heard a lot of good stories.
Okay, I was hoping you'd be a little bit more specific.
It's a powerful drug, and it's very powerful. And a lot of good things have come out about the hydroxy. A lot of good things have come out.
Okay, never mind.
It's been used for a long time, for 30, 40 years on the malaria and on lupus too. Strong arthritis. It's been out on the market for 60 or 65 years for malaria, lupus, and other things. It may not work, and it may work. What do I know? I'm not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. Well, I've worked with doctors, but the zinc you do take. So I'm taking the two, the zinc and the hydroxy.
Oh, okay.
But we don't have time to go and say, gee, let's take a couple of years and test it out. And let's go and test with the test tubes and the laboratories.
So, does hydroxychloroquine actually have any evidence, or is it just another social media superstar destined to crumble? Okay, so looking at some of the benefits that have been established in hydroxychloroquine as well as chloroquine, as follows: it has been shown to have immunomodulatory effects, which basically in layman's term means that it changes the activity of certain immune cells. And this has benefits in certain conditions such as arthritis, such as lupus, where usually the inflammatory reaction caused by our white blood cells is a culprit in those diseases. It's also been shown to be an alkalinizer of vacuolar and lysosomal pH. Now that sounds very complicated, but essentially what vacuoles and lysosomes are certain parts of our cells that are involved in a process known as endocytosis, which allows things to come into the cell. Normally they are acidic in their own nature, so when you change the pH, it actually inhibits some of these processes. This is actually how it works as an anti-malarial drug, because it stops the malaria parasite from being able to actually enter our cells. Now, when I refer to vacuolar pH, I'm really referring to the endosomes. And what these endosomes are is the way the membrane of our cell caves in on itself and forms a bit of a bubble, just like if you blew a bubble but somehow had a dust particle in it. It's just a mechanism of transport for things to get in our cell, where the dust particle in this case would be the coronavirus that comes in. By changing the pH of that, it inhibits that activity, but in order for the endosome to release the coronavirus into our cell, it has to attach to the other structure known as the lysosome to get rid of the cell membrane that budded off to form the bubble. It also blocks this process as well. It's also been shown to be a zinc ionophore. Again, another big word. Essentially all this means is that the zinc that'll be flowing from our blood into our extracellular fluid, so outside of the cell, needs some help to get through. So what hydroxychloroquine is an ionophore. Essentially that just means it forms a bridge that allows the zinc to rapidly enter into our cells. This has actually been shown to inhibit the activity of certain enzymes in certain species of viruses. In my last video, I mentioned about the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. It's the enzyme that pretty much makes more and more copies of the viral RNA. Zinc actually inhibits that enzyme, which inhibits the replication of these viruses. I think personally, this mechanism of the drug has the most promise of the four major pathways shown in vitro, since zinc has been shown to have numerous benefits on our immune system activation, as well as in other bodily processes in our body. Check out some of my other videos if you're unsure. In layman's terms, as the zinc concentration of our cells increases, the viral RNA or the viral load in the cell decreases. The final proposed mechanism that has been shown is that hydroxychloroquine binds to a molecule known as sialic acid. Now this is just some random sugar molecule that's found on our outside of our cell membranes, but the interesting thing about that is you usually have a large number of these located around the ACE2 receptor, which is the receptor that the coronavirus binds to enter into our cells. Because these molecules, hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, are large, when they bind to the sialic acid, and some studies are actually suggesting it can bind to the ACE2 receptor as well. It pretty much blocks any possibility of the spike protein of the coronavirus from binding. It pretty much just acts like a roadblock. It can't bind, therefore it can't enter our cell through a proposed mechanism of endocytosis. This was a study done of April this year which proposed this new mechanism of a way that the SARS-CoV-2 virus enters into human cells. So, what are the results telling us so far? Well, this is where it gets tricky in my opinion. It firstly tells us that you must smash the like button and subscribe for the YouTube algorithm, but in all seriousness, out of the proposed mechanisms above, as I mentioned, the standout for me, as well as many other medical professionals, is the fact that hydroxychloroquine acts as a zinc ionophore. Zinc has been shown to inhibit the enzymes for many viruses critical to their replication, such as the RDRP, RNA-dependent RNA polymerase, and this would, in theory, allow people to recover much faster. Except nearly all of the large randomized controlled trials and all of the larger studies done on hydroxychloroquine, and chloroquine for that matter, don't include zinc, or they are taken separately in separate participant groups, but not together. This is similar to what is happening with other drugs such as ivermectin, which is another common antiparasitic drug, and it's also a zinc ionophore. So really, a lot of the trial results we are seeing are just a drug being used where it's likely that in order to treat COVID, it's more effective to have a combination of treatments. It just feels like, based on hydroxychloroquine's mechanisms, that the metaphor is correct. We are pulling out a gun, we are cleaning it, we are pointing it in the direction of the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and then we're realizing there's no bullet loaded in it, i.e. the zinc. Another point about these studies is it's critical to look at the time from infection to the time of starting treatment. And that's for all of these treatments on trial, especially the ones that focus on reducing the viral load in the body, since that's more critical in the first 14 days of the virus attacking. And this is why there are still some pre-exposure prophylaxis studies being done on hydroxychloroquine. On June the 5th of this year, we had the large recovery trial, which reported that 1,542 participants that were hospitalized in the hydroxychloroquine arm, 25.7% of them died after 28 days versus 23.5% in a group of 3,132 participants in the control. So really there's no significant impact of hydroxychloroquine there. A second study done in Spain on 2,300 participants exposed to the coronavirus had received either hydroxychloroquine or the standard of care, and at the end of the trial there was no significant differences in any of the outcomes that they were measuring. And finally, a large meta-analysis of 24 smaller case studies and trials concluded insufficient and often conflicting evidence on the benefits and harms of using hydroxychloroquine to treat COVID-19. Not to mention the Lancet and their lovely publications of 96,000 participants around the world claiming hydroxychloroquine resulted in an increase in deaths compared to COVID-19. It was later retracted due to heavy criticisms of the data. However, there are some researchers who are still interested in investing in its use in the pre-exposure prophylaxis setting, which is something that I've mentioned. But honestly, for me, it doesn't matter unless they throw zinc in. I don't think its chances are too strong by itself. Only time will tell what actually works and what's been a waste of time. But so far, the two videos I've covered aren't quite showing super promising results. So let's hope that my next video contains some better news for us. Until next time, stay safe, enjoy your week. Don't forget to slap the like and subscribe buttons below. Till next time.